I've worked around the world, I've done a whole lot of different stuff, and I've got a daughter who's studying human rights, graduating in May actually in the US. So she gave me this tie, and this tie is, for those of you can see, it's got some elephants on it. And I nearly said to her, you know, probably not appropriate to give that to me, but anyhow, I shut up at Christmas and thought, you know, maybe I'll wear it. And it's sitting in my office today, and I thought, this is exactly what I want to talk about today, is what's the elephants in the room. Because I think actually as a country, we don't do a lot of thinking about what it's going to be like in 10, 20, 30 years' time. And I understand this is what this day's about. The other piece of introduction is our business is about to go to court on Monday for an 8 to 10 week trial, and it's a bit of a mad week for us. So when Wendy emailed me, and I sort of really didn't understand why I was going to be here. But anyhow, I'll give it my best shot. So I think I'm only supposed to talk for 5 minutes. I've probably got 10 minutes to talk about, and then I'm happy to answer some questions. And there are three things I want to talk about and get you guys to think about. One is you will never own a car in 10 years' time. So you might want to write that down. The second thing is in 10 years' time, you will never read a newspaper as we know it. And then the final thing I want to talk about is in 10 years' time, it'll all be self-service. So let me just go through those points and think about what they might mean. So I'm a pretty avid Uber user, and I assume, you know, put up some hands, but I assume most of you have used Uber at some point. Now, you take the combination of Uber and you take electric cars and driverless cars, and you think about a future in 10 years' time when you won't have to own a car. Because simply you'll get on a phone, if indeed we have those at that point in time, and you'll call up some transportation and it'll arrive at your doorstep and take you where you want to go, and it'll be incredibly cheap. Now, that'll happen. It may not be in 10 years' time, it may be in 15 years' time, but it'll certainly happen. And it's going to have some very, very profound implications. And now some of those are pretty straightforward. Will be fewer cars on the road. We'll need less road space. There won't be any crashes, so we won't need auto repair shops. We won't actually need gas stations, because these cars will wander off somewhere and charge themselves in the middle of the night. All of that infrastructure that we need just won't be needed. But then the second thing you think about is, okay, if I've got all this transportation, what does that mean for some other industries? So I don't know whether Mod talked about it, maybe he didn't, but the media in the US, 45 minutes commute either way is the average American. And what do? They listen to the radio. And actually radio is about the only profitable part of media at the moment anywhere in the world. So you kind of destroy the radio business model because people aren't going to listen to it necessarily because they have shorter commutes. You also think about shopping. So how many people shop on Amazon? I guess half, all, everyone. I've got a place in New York City. They've got Amazon Prime, and I don't mean one-day delivery. They've got 36,000 items that you can get within 60 minutes. And if you think about that in driverless cars, you think everything can be delivered to your doorstep almost instantly. So why would you ever go to a shop? There's really no need for that infrastructure. And you also think about some other things that might disappear or be changed fundamentally. So people don't want to live an hour away from work if it means they have to walk, then take the train, then take the bus, as some of the people who work for me do. But if you can hop in a car that's going to take, or car in inverted commas, that's going to take 40 minutes, and you can do some work because you're not driving and you know it'll only take 40 minutes, then you'll live further away from the city. And that's going to fundamentally change property. In fact, inner city property prices will go down, regional property prices will go up. So there's all these implications of thinking about what's going to happen if we have driverless cars. And just remind you, it will happen at some point in time. And it will happen in your lifetime, probably even happen in my lifetime. So that's the first point. You're not going to own a car. Second point, if I can remember the order, is you won't read news as we know it today. And this is the bit I said to Linda on the way in, is we're in a very interesting media environment at the moment. We have a little media business which actually produces really good content but loses money. And I'm not going to give you the whole history of what's happened to the media in the last 10 years, but effectively the core of media that existed, or the core funding of media that existed, has been decimated by Google. And that's classified advertising. So what you see in the media at the moment is what I call phase one of perhaps a 5-stage process of decimating the media world. Why on Stuff are the most popular stories about the Kardashians? I'm not really sure, but they are the most popular stories. Stuff gets 11 or 12 million video hits a month, and that's what generates most of its revenue. They think it's great when there's an earthquake in Christchurch because when some of the cliffs fell down a couple of months ago, they got 1 million hits on that video in 3 hours. But no one reads any story greater than a page. That's what happens. So what we're getting to in is an environment where, and they're not making money, where the news is kind of the news. There's no analysis. The next phase of this, and Mod alluded to it, is Stuff's not making any money unless it pays for its content to be put on Google or Facebook. 75% of the advertising revenue online is paid to either Google or Facebook. So if you want to get some viewers, you have to pay either Google or Facebook Instant Articles to get coverage. And the only articles you're going to pay for are about the Kardashians or about whatever else that people want to listen to or watch. And we notice this in the business media because we really don't get a lot of business coverage anymore. Actually, I forgot to look at Stuff before I came here, but inevitably the business news article and Stuff will be, I don't know, house price in Auckland, or it'll be about rising fees for something, parking in Wellington. There's really no business news on that anymore at all. And the same's true as the Herald. I don't want to knock Stuff. So where's this all going to lead? I'm not really sure, but the economics of media are broken. And if you take 10 years down the track, the real question is, one further point, and I know Linda must have commented on Donald Trump, but yes, there's a lot of stuff going on in the US at the moment. But one of the interesting things about the Trump campaign is no mainstream media knows how to deal with them. So they can fact check Donald Trump all they like, but really no one cares. Apparently he's lied, 180 times in the last week or whatever the number is. He'll do a speech and he'll lie 18 or 20 times in the same speech. No one really cares, and that's because he's just popular. So you have this whole ecosystem around providing news that people want to hear rather than what's good for them. And if we think about ourselves as a democracy, one of the things that really works is we have good analysis and coverage of events. If you take away the analysis, what happens to our democracy? And that's exactly what's going to happen to the US in November if Donald Trump wins. You get a populist president who really no one understands what his policies are or what he's going to do. And that could happen globally if we don't have good news and analysis. And unfortunately, that media economic model is broken. The final thing is self-service. So in our business, we talk a lot about the blockchain and distributed ledger. So much so that we have a jar at work that if everyone talks about it, they have to put $10 in. And there's quite a lot of money in that jar. I don't know what we're going to do with it. Now, you will have all have heard of Bitcoin. There's no simple way of describing distributed ledger or the blockchain, but essentially what it means is data, rather than being stored centrally like your bank accounts or like the share registries or the trading system that we have, all in one location and everyone connects to, is that data is shared on multiple devices or multiple computers all around the world, tens of thousands of them. Now, there are some huge benefits in that. It becomes really cheap because there's no central computer. It's very secure because there are multiple copies of the same information. You can verify those. But it also means that the people who are in the centre, like us running the stock exchange, or like the bank, who has all that account information, will cease to exist at some point in time. But there are some more profound things that's going to go on there as well, which is if you take your iPhone and you think about that in 10 or 15 years' time, that'll be your self-service. In other words, everything that you think about connecting with other people will be on that phone. It'll have your bank balance. No one else will know your bank balance, not even the bank, because that won't exist. But you'll have a virtual currency. Actually, I think there's a name for it, cryptocurrency already. You'll have that. It'll be on there. And if you want to pay someone, you'll pay someone over the blockchain. There'll be no central record of how much money you have. But more importantly than that, it'll have Your house ownership, if you own a house. If you own a car, your ownership rights to that car will be on your phone. It'll be nowhere else. Yes, it'll be on the blockchain somewhere in the world, 10,000 copies of it, but only people who you allow to read that information will be able to read that information. There's no central repository. There's some really good aspects to that. Oh, and the final piece on that is identity. It's a thing we don't talk about a lot on the blockchain, but of course the identity, your identity, doesn't become age and gender and ethnicity, nationality, where you live, which is sort of the government view of you, how much tax you pay. That identity becomes everything you own, everything you've ever done, where you went to school, what grades you got, who you married, who you divorced, all that is your identity. Now the great thing about that is it's yours and no one else can see it unless you let them see it. So that's great for privacy advocates. But it also has some other implications that we need to debate as a country and actually globally as well. One of the cool things with my job is you get invited to some weird stuff. And I got a call from the US ambassador, a couple of months ago and said, oh, you need to come for dinner on Saturday night or Sunday night. You have to wear a suit. And I go, well, I've never met this guy before, but, it could be interesting. And he says, oh, you'll find it really interesting. So I turn up there, and the director of the NSA was there. And I presume you know what the NSA is, but it's a spy agency, basically, in the US. Now, they don't spy in the US, they spy outside the US. So the fact he was here is kind of interesting. The fact that he was here for less than 12 hours is even more interesting, and that media didn't report he was here is doubly interesting. But he didn't discuss a lot about what they do, obviously, otherwise they'd probably have to kill you. But he did talk a lot about the iPhone case in San Bernardino, and the FBI wanting Apple to unlock the iPhone. And this is just the beginning of this debate between privacy on one hand, all the information about you own and you control, and that's what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years' time. Everything about you will be yours, and only what you decide to share with other people will be shared. Versus security, because one of the tenets of a democratic society is that we have collective security. But if our security establishment doesn't have access to information to do its job, then that becomes very, very difficult. And the US is in no position to have that debate. We're starting to have that debate in New Zealand, I think, over the next 12 to 18 months. But that'll just become much more pertinent in an environment where there is so much more control over your private information than there has been for many, many generations. So those are my 3 points. It's got nothing to do with my business, nothing to do with the corporate world either, but I was thinking about 4 o'clock, what the hell could I say? So those are some interesting things that will impact us all over the next 5 or 10, 20 years. Thanks very much.